Getting paid used to be a whole thing. First, managers had to process time cards and crunch numbers, send them to a third-party paycheck processing company, then send them back to your workplace where you'd pick it up, take it to a bank, wait in line for 10 minutes, sign the check, then tell the clerk whether you wanted to cash it or place it into an account. Today, you wake up every other Friday morning to a push notification on your phone, and there it is. Modern conveniences like direct deposit, cell phones, and the free venti mocha latte no frap extra whip you get at Starbucks on your birthday might improve life, but it comes at a cost. Long before tap-to-pay and loyalty programs, people warned of the dangers of centralized and mass data collection since the first telegraph pole went up back in the 19th century. Wiring money through companies like Western Union and even time clock punch card data was a concern for people worried that such information could infringe on privacy. But once 9/11 hit, many Americans willingly sacrificed their data at the altar of, quote, national security by ushering in the Patriot Act. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. In the following years, Americans snuggled to sleep in a new world where everything they do, buy, or go is passively collected amongst a whirlwind of endless war. That is, until Edward Snowden barricaded himself in a Hong Kong hotel room and told the world what was really going on at the NSA with programs like Tempora, X-Keyscore, and Prism. But that was 12 years ago, and civil liberty concerns have only increased with AI and things like UK's Online Safety Act of 2023, for example, requiring users to confirm their identity when accessing adult content. And that might not just be prawn, but dating sites or social media networks, potentially even YouTube or Spotify, given the log's vague language as to what is adult content. Yet despite everything we've learned about the NSA and the intelligence community in general, many people see more conveniences than threats. Let's break down both sides. Thanks so much for stopping by NPC Overrider, where we challenge mainstream source code to develop independent thought, one user story at a time. Let's log into the NPC environment, and let's see if mass collection of data among government and private entities is a net loss or a win. The mainstream argument says mass data collection saves lives. Let's check out this short clip to get us started.
Osama bin Laden was a SIGINT target. We did have some collection on him in the past using a satellite phone.
There has to be a requirement to go after that signal for some reason of national security.
We recognized that this was such a complex problem that we weren't going to be able to do it by ourselves. You know, in a story this sensational, if it leaked, and he is in that compound, he could very well leave.
Yep.
And then it's going to take 10 years to find him again.
Watch the full episode on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, supporting points for the argument. Point number 5, national security and fraud. Mass data collection feeds into initiatives like the NSA's PRISM program, which helps identify potential terrorists or domestic criminals by logging internet search history, emails, file transfers, and live chats from companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, and others. To prevent fraud, financial services require ID verification and must keep this sensitive information on record. This info can be shared with law enforcement or intelligence entities to track bad actors. Point number 4, convenience. Applying for Real ID in the US or the UK's Digital Verification Services or DVS under the Data Use and Access Act of 2025 streamlines processes with travel and government benefit collection by linking ID across agencies. Private companies like Amazon and Google use mass data collection for ease of use with purchases and to improve user experience. Point number 3, crime prevention and investigation. Mass data collection can help prevent crime, much like in the film Minority Report. Palantir, a data mining company contracted to government and law enforcement agencies, uses programs such as their Gotham platform, which can identify high-risk individuals, potentially identifying crime before it occurs. Private entities like credit bureaus such as Experian use ID data to detect suspicious financial activity and work with law enforcement to spot money laundering and fraud. Point 2, public safety and crisis response. The government can collect health data such as vaccination records, as Palantir did with the CDC, to enable rapid pandemic responses to allocate resources and determine sources. Fitness apps and services like 23andMe aggregate health data to advance medical research and present health insights for users. Lastly, point number 1, economic and social insights. The government needs aggregated data from census and tax records to help guide policy decisions, allocate resources, and address inequalities among the population. Private companies analyze consumer data such as spending habits or social media activity to drive innovation, improve supply chains, and create jobs, as seen with Palantir's Foundry platform. All right, everybody wants to be safe, but let's check out the rebuttal that says mass data collection is a bad deal. Here's a short clip to get us going.
But the real answer is these programs were never about terrorism. Mass surveillance has value, just not for saving lives. It is valuable for traditional espionage, diplomatic manipulation, economic espionage, and social influence, right? Controlling the narrative, shaping the way the world thinks about issues, and understanding what everybody's thinking, who is connected to who. These programs are about power. What this is really about is about liberty versus surveillance, not versus security or anything else like that.
All right, point number 5, privacy violations and lack of consent. As Edward Snowden pointed out in the 2014 documentary Citizen4, the government relies on, quote, linkability to collect data on massive scales. For example, configuring your bus pass to auto-replenish funds from your bank account allows analysts to link your travel data to your purchase information, enabling tracking abilities. When you consider how much of your data is interlinked, it's easy to see how these methods can infringe on privacy. Private companies like social media platforms use vague language in terms of service to hide their intentions while exploiting voluntary data sharing for profit. Point 4, nefarious data use. Patriot Act supporters assume intelligence and law enforcement agencies strictly collect data on foreign and domestic threats, but the NSA's bulk metadata collection under Section 215 collected phone records of millions of Americans without criminal suspicion. Thankfully, in 2015, a court ruled this as unconstitutional. Government analysts have even been caught collecting information on romantic interests, and agencies target journalists, activists, and political opponents via the PRISM program. Law enforcement has also funneled data into other federal agencies through, quote, parallel construction, such as the DEA, ATF, or IRS, where intelligence agencies share data with law enforcement, which bypasses the need for warrants. Point 3, data breaches and security risks. Even if governments and private entities have the best intentions, there are serious risks with data leaks. Data compiled for Real ID or the UK's DVS are prime targets for cybercriminals, which can expose social security numbers or biometrics, as we saw with Equifax's 2017 breach. Personal social media data was used to target potential political supporters, shows how private companies are just as vulnerable despite promises to keep data secure. Point 2, lost civil liberties. Basic American rights such as the freedom of speech, press, assembly, religion, and protections against unreasonable search and seizure are all out the window through these extremely invasive government programs and policies. Private companies attack personal freedom by using tracking data and browsing habits to manipulate user choices, such as excluding them from services or products based on their profiles or affiliations. Number 1, discrimination. Mass surveillance and data collection can lead to social credit scores, which determine who can do what and when, such as the case in places like China. Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act allows warrantless surveillance of citizen communication used to expand, quote, domestic terrorism definitions to include traditional conservative views. A 2023 internal FBI memo from the Virginia Field Office flagged, quote, radical traditional Catholics as potential threats. Tucker Carlson also claimed on the Lex Fridman podcast that NSA agents hacked his signal messages in 2021 prior to his interview with Putin in Russia. Private companies may take advantage similarly by targeting Americans with right-of-center views, as we saw in the Twitter files, and banks freezing or revoking access to private accounts. Thankfully, President Trump recently signed an executive order threatening steep penalties for those targeting customers based on conservative or political views. All right, here's the final patch. We are for sale. Most of us probably like to think that tech companies, the intelligence community, and law enforcement have systems in place to catch people who wish to do harm to others. Maybe Google tells the cops about direct threats in emails, or the NSA notices trends in someone's daily behavior that suggests they're planning to hurt people. But what happens when the evidence suggests that mass surveillance is doing more harm than good? In 2013, Edward Snowden told the world what many already expected. The US was illegally spying on millions of Americans without probable cause or warrants. During this time, many people, including then-President Barack Obama, criticized Snowden for not taking his concerns up through the proper channels, where he could have protected national security and himself through the Whistleblower Act. But try telling that to people like Thomas Drake and John Crane. Who? Exactly. Like Snowden, Drake and Thomas were concerned that the US intelligence agencies were overstepping, but they raised their concerns by the book. But do you recall the NSA director, senior intelligence leadership, or Obama himself calling a press conference to announce that they were reining in Patriot Act policies because a few guys thought mass data collection was unconstitutional? Of course not. What happened? They got their doors kicked in, their lives turned upside down, and charged with crimes, at least Drake was, and they were overall made as an example to other would-be do-gooders that if you speak up, you will end your career, if you're lucky. What's more, mass data collection doesn't even seem to stop terrorism. Following 9/11, several other Intel whistleblowers said the NSA had tools and information to potentially stop 9/11, but they were focused on the quantity of data, not quality. Despite the spying, skirting the Constitution, and arresting those who speak up, that's not the worst of it. It's that the public would rather argue whether Snowden is a patriot or a traitor rather than focus on the government trampling on our rights. As Snowden told John Stossel in a 2020 interview, people don't care if Google knows their location, if Facebook tells the government their political leanings, or that everything that they type or say could be recorded in an NSA database, because they don't understand what mass data collection is designed to do. It's designed to turn individual people into values in a data set, values that can be manipulated. In January of 2012, Facebook data scientists ran an experiment to see if they could sway people's emotions by only showing them positive or negative images. The results? Quote, when positive expressions were reduced, people produced fewer positive posts and more negative posts. When negative expressions were reduced, the opposite pattern occurred. That's from the Facebook research team. Now apply that to how we think about laws, elections, and social issues. Social media, apps, and banks aren't the products for sale. We are. Well, that's going to do it for this version of NPC Overrider. I'm your lead engineer, Greg. All references are available through the release notes. But what about you? What do you think? Is mass data collection an issue? Or are we just overreacting? If you want to help me save the NPCs, please set the like button to true and open up a ticket in the comments section if you have an idea for a future release. But for now, it's about Beer 30. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.